In today's show, Scoot Henderson is getting closer to returning to action. The Blazers wrap up a road trip in New York City, plus an injury update for Duop Reath. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, Scoot Henderson appears to be getting much closer to playing basketball in the National Basketball Association. Plus, we'll preview the Blazers' final game of a 3-game road swing against the Knicks on Friday evening. And a bummer update on Duop Reath, who's going to miss the remainder of the season, which has an impact not only on Reath's future, but also some decisions the Blazers will need to make in the not-too-distant future as well, with other players on the roster, including their two-way guys, C.J. Sissoko and Caleb Love. That's what we're going to do today. Let's start with the Scoot Henderson news. This is reported by Sean Hyken of the Rose Garden Report, who reports that Scoot Henderson has been cleared to participate in full contact drills, the final stage of his ramp up to playing basketball again. Wow, that is good news because it has been a while. Scoot Henderson, of course, tore his left hamstring during an off-season workout in the last week of September, prior to training camp. You know, they're back. They practiced for about 2 weeks, kind of unofficial practices back in the gym, but this wasn't training camp. Like, the season hadn't officially started, but back on the practice court prior to training camp, Scoot Henderson tears his left hamstring. At the time, immediately it was in the press release issued by the Trailblazers, he was going to return to basketball activities in 4 to 8 weeks. That's not return to play, but return to basketball activities. That release came out on a Friday. On Monday, the Blazers held their media day right at the end of September, and Joe Cronin said that it could take us, quote, as long as 10 weeks, and sometimes, if they're stubborn, I'm quoting Joe Cronin here, and sometimes, if they're stubborn, you won't feel right for even longer than that. So we're just going to rest and rehab and really be diligent about getting him back. All told, Scoot Henderson, who's been ruled out for Friday's game against the New York Knicks, is going to miss at a minimum 49 games this year, about 18 weeks following his injury. I think you can criticize the Blazers for maybe lack of clarity with the Scoot stuff, just like lack of just not providing timely updates, kind of like only providing an update on Scoot's initial injury in November after it was reported by The Athletic how little Scoot was doing. And I was like, oh, by the way, we should probably put something official out there, right? Like kind of, not doing the professional job that they should do in terms of providing clarity to the general public. But I think we've seen enough re-injuries now with guys like Jalen Green and Aaron Gordon to know that, or at least to understand. I'm still not a medical professional, but to understand that sort of hamstrings are tough. They're tough to come back from, and you can get close and then they'll flare up again. And as Jalen Green has tried to get back, he's played basically, he'll play like a game and then get hurt the next game in two sort of return trips. And then Aaron Gordon, who missed some time and then returned from a hamstring strain, he, of course, is now going to be, it was reported today, he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks with a recurrence of that hamstring injury. So, these things take a long time to get right. So, I think fair to be critical of the Blazers for how they sort of handled the messaging around this injury, but the idea that this is the length seems at least within the realm of possibility, although it would have been easier to understand how long it took if they were just more communicative with how things were going, but that's not how they do it. They're not interested in doing it. A lot of NBA teams are pretty quiet on injury stuff. The Blazers are not alone there, but they are bad at it. And I am not afraid to say that they are. And if you're listening to the Blazers, you're bad at it. But this is really good news for Scoot. It's really good news because, boy, was this going to be a big year for him. Year 3, even like there's like some financial stuff, like he's extension eligible this summer, and I think the way this year has gone pretty much knocks out any possibility of him like reasonably signing a contract extension this summer. But he'll play year 4 and be a restricted free agent. It's not actually he can make his money, and the Blazers will have plenty of time to make some decisions on him if they so choose. But not just the financial stuff, just the sort of with Damian Lillard eventually returning in the fall, with Jrue Holiday providing mostly very positive minutes this season, Drew's sort of place within the franchise is also just remains unclear, right? Like is he for sure the starting point guard of the future? Is he a backup? Do they view him as sort of a long-term backup because blah, 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 blah? Is he so good that he actually does muddy the waters with like how much Dame and Jrue can participate? Can they play Jrue and him together a bunch? Can they play 3-guard lineups and get away with it defensively with Shaedon Sharpe playing up at small forward? Like so many questions to be asked that just they haven't been able to learn. And you know, I guess the reasonable question here to follow up here is like, will they be able to learn? I will say this, prior to the reporting from Hyken, a listener sent me an email that they were at the Wizards game and that Scoot Henderson was getting up, actually going through a real pregame workout along with Blake Wesley. I didn't ask this listener to share permission to share this information, so I'm not going to disclose their name, but thanks for sending me this email. It was a good back and forth. I appreciate the update. And importantly, I really haven't seen Scoot work out pregame. Like I'm not at the arena at 4:30 or whatever, like trying to like track everybody's workout. But the media availability is at like 5:00. So I'm there 2 hours before tip off, and I haven't even seen Scoot like coming off the court and like sweating or whatever, where I have seen, say, Damian Lillard doing that. I was unaware that, and that game was a little bit earlier this week on Tuesday. I was not under the impression that Scoot was back, like really getting after it workout wise. A week ago, January 20th, it was reported that by a couple reporters that Scoot Henderson was, running full speed after practice at the practice facility. That was a step in the right direction. Getting back out on the court, as reported by one listener on Tuesday, and getting a pregame workout in, that's a step in the right direction. And being cleared for full contact is a really good step in the right direction. It means he can play. The Blazers aren't going to host a lot of full contact practices for the remainder of the season. I can't imagine that happens, but it does mean that Scoot can get out with like the Blazers, sort of end of the bench guys, and the player development staff, and like play close to a simulated game. Can't play NBA basketball. It's really hard to simulate that off the court. The best way to simulate NBA basketball is to go ahead and play in the games. But in terms of like getting back to an NBA, some sort of physicality before you get dropped into an NBA game, Scoot can now do that, which means that he is getting much closer. So he's been ruled out for the next game, which means that after Friday, so that's you're listening to Friday, January 30th's program, and the Blazers will close up a road trip this evening in Madison Square Garden. After this game, the Blazers will have 7 more remaining before the All-Star break. And the All-Star break ends with a road back-to-back, Minnesota and Utah, February 11th and 12th. That's the first half of the season, first half. That's the break. Then they'll go into the break and they'll come back. And then after the break, I'd say notably after the break, the Blazers only have 2 more remaining back-to-backs on their slate. February 28th and March 1st, and then then March 22nd and 23rd. Both of those are with travel. The one at the end of February is at Atlanta, at Charlotte, at Atlanta. And then the one on March, the 22nd, 23rd, is at Denver and then home against Brooklyn. So not ideal, but I can't imagine that Scoot coming back off this injury plays back-to-backs at the end of the year. Even as young as he is, I just think they'll be really cautious with him. So like the maximum he could play if he played Sunday when the Blazers are back at the Moda Center and playing the Cavs, and I do not expect Scoot Henderson to play Sunday, but the maximum number of games, assuming he sits out those one part of each of those back-to-backs, is 30. So we're talking less than 30 games. Less than 30 games to learn all the things you need to know. You're just not going to. You're just not going to learn all the things that you want to learn about what Scoot is and what they are. 25 games will be a nice little number to sort of get a sense, but also like you gotta assume that the first 5-6 of those, he just will be getting his sort of sea legs under him. He might be on a minutes restriction for a big stretch. He might not be ever cleared to sort of like, with the way the minutes work in the first couple weeks, to play crunch time. This isn't, get him back on the floor and see what he looks like. That's like the most important thing for the Blazers. Kind of learn what you can about Scoop. But man, this has been a long road for him. I'm hoping he gets to get back out on the court and play basketball and look like a good basketball player. But in terms of like the learning what you got and how it might work and what looks like what, you just aren't getting a lot of that with Scoot this year. I think this is good news. As a sort of side note here, same listener who was at the Wizards game said that Blake Wesley, he was supposed to be out 10 to 12 weeks. We've passed the 12-week mark with his broken foot that he sustained on, I believe it was October 29th. Back at the end of October, we've hit the 12-week mark since that injury, so we should get an update on Blake Wesley in the near-ish future. But knowing the Blazers, they'll wait. But maybe we'll get one later today. I'm recording this on Thursday afternoon. Maybe they'll send one out shortly before the game starts. But they've already sent one injury update out, so I doubt they will. But Blake has been getting back a little bit on the practice court, and according to my little birdie in Capital One Arena in Washington, Blake was working out even harder than Scoot. Like, it was getting in a real workout. So I think Blake Wesley is also getting closer. Interesting where Blake Wesley fits into the puzzle now, but it's better to have more options than fewer. So it is that's also good news as well. There's some bad injury news to close the show, but we're not going to do that next. Instead, we're going to talk about the Knicks game. The Blazers close up a road trip. They're 0-2 on this trip. Can they salvage the road trip with a win against the Knicks? Let's talk about what is ahead of them in New York. Join me in the third segment, won't ya? First, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The energy from the crowd, the big moments, crunch time, the big shots, it's all wonderful, but getting tickets, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. So you can pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and you're going to have tickets within minutes, a few clicks. I like the Game Time app a lot because it's just simple. Whatever venue you want to go to, say it's the Moda Center Sunday against the Cleveland Cavaliers. You pull up the app on your phone, you're going to see a map of the Moda Center, and then full upfront pricing. What you see is what you get. When you're scrolling the app, whatever, it'll flag each little seat. You click on that. You say, I want to sit right there. That's going to cost you $109. Well, guess what? When you get to checkout, you're going to pay $109. It's quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. All right. Thanks for making this show your first listen. If you are living that everyday lifestyle and you indeed are listening to this show every day, particularly for you audio listeners out there, why not join the Locked On Everydayer Club for $5 a month or $50 a year? You get an ad-free audio feed of this episode, Locked On Blazers, without the interruptions, plus access to the members-only Discord where you can get in there and chit-chat with me about things like the NBA G League or, the NBA trade deadline, which is happening next week. And if you pop up in there right now and you sign up, you get your first month free when you use the promo code DEADLINE. So check it out, and find the link in the show notes for this episode. Okay, let's talk about this Knicks game. Blazers, Knicks to close out a road trip. Heading into this trip, it seems like Boston, Washington, and New York. Celtics are good. The Knicks at the time heading into this trip were talented and had a good record, but were really, really, really scuffling. But they had just been in Portland and beat the Blazers not that long ago on a couple weeks back, January 11th. And so this looked like a tough road trip. But it was like, okay, well, if they beat the Wizards, they just got to find a way to win one game against Boston and New York, and then you can call it a really successful road trip. But really, it's like when you lose that game to the Wizards, you sort of don't win the taking care of business game. then I don't know if it puts extra pressure on this game, right? Because I don't think the Blazers are in danger of slipping out of the play-in. Their floor is 10th. Like, I feel strongly about that. None of those teams below them in the West have any incentive or even really appetite for climbing in the standings. The Clippers just keep on winning basketball games despite a really horrendous start to the season. So certainly there's the Clippers behind the Blazers, but like, if you think sort of about the Blazers' ultimate goal. So I'm not saying like they have to win in order to achieve their dreams, but if you think about the Blazers' ultimate goals this season, which is, make the play-in and give themselves a puncher's chance to be a playoff team. I think it's pretty clear they would like to be a playoff team this year because it would be like solidify that the steps forward they've taken this year and they've improved. Plus, they would get rid of their debt owed to the Chicago Bulls, which allow them sort of more flexibility to trade draft picks and make bigger moves into the future. But I think, like, more than anything else, like, this is a team that wants to win games in the immediate, and that's the sort of point of a basketball team. And so after dropping these two games, like this Knicks game, I don't know if it takes on greater importance, but because of how they have played of late, kind of getting just a really brutal start against the Raptors, kind of getting just handled by the Celtics, although they kind of fake made it close at the end. And then a loss where they just, they turned the ball over 20 times, missed 10 free throws, just a sloppy loss to a bad Wizards team. This is kind of a chance to play a good basketball team and get back on track, if more than anything else. I don't know if this is proof of anything, but a chance to get back on track. And as with everything now, the eyes immediately for the Blazers go to the injury report. Deni Avdija is officially listed as questionable with a low back strain. We will see on his general availability. And Rob Williams is listed as questionable as well. Typically, Rob has missed back-to-backs, like he's sitting out back-to-backs, probably will for the remainder of his career. He played in Boston and did not play against the Wizards. And then typically the way the injury report has worked just language-wise, when he's come back off of those sitting out the second night of a back-to-back, he has still been listed as questionable. I don't know why exactly they're doing it that way. I think he's just allowed to sit out back-to-backs. Like, I think you could just say, like, he doesn't do that. Like, that's the way they've done it. So I think this Rob thing is more semantics than anything else. But Deni being on the injury report still, he did not look great in that Wizards game in terms of like moving like Deni Avdija. We shall see. But I kind of anticipate that he will play just based on the way he's categorized here. But obviously, I don't know what's going on with Denny's back. To speak any more specifically than that, than my assumption based on his availability in the prior game and no other updates in the negative suggests that he will play. For the Knicks, Josh Hart is on the injury report. He's questionable with right ankle soreness. He was also listed as questionable on Wednesday and played against the Raptors. So I assume Josh will play. And then Miles McBride is questionable with a left ankle injury management. He did not play against the Raptors on Wednesday, so we will see if Deuce is available. If not Deuce, you get a little Tyler Kolek as the backup point guard for the Knicks. The Knicks on the year, they're right now they're tied for second in the Eastern Conference. This is a good basketball team. Like, I think the Knicks are talented enough to make the NBA Finals. Like, I think they're that good. They just had a really rough patch. And they've won 4 in a row now. They beat the absolute snot out of the Brooklyn Nets, where they darn near doubled them up. They had to settle for just a 50-point win. But there was a brief period during the game when it looked like they were going to score twice as many points. The Nets finished with a cool 66. They're just coming off a nice win over the Raptors. That was their 4th win in a row. Those 4 wins in a row, though, come on the heels of losing 9 of 11. Of course, one of those victories, when they were going 2-9 in an 11-game stretch, was against the Blazers in Portland. But since then, after that game against the Blazers and they win, then they lost 4 straight right after that, including a loss against the Sacramento Kings and then a home loss to the Dallas Mavericks. Like, they were in a bad place. They seem to be in a less bad place right now, just because they're winning some games. Obviously, you come back and beat, you beat a bad Brooklyn Nets team and you beat the Kings on the other side of the country. That is helpful, but wins over the Sixers, who are totally competent, and the Raptors, who are just probably good. I think the Knicks are still talented. They're the top 3 offense on the year. They're slightly below average defense on the year. I think this is a tough game. I don't must win, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know about all that. But I do think like the Blazers are in a spot where this is kind of a get back on track, play the right way type of game. Even if they lose, just to like not score 12 points in the opening quarter, not turn the ball over 20 times, not have missed 10 free throws where it feels like you're just kind of losing the small things. If you get out-talented in the final 6 minutes by a good Knicks team, so be it, right? Kind of the way they lost the game to the Knicks in Portland. It's like if the Knicks make threes down the stretch and you were close, but like you lose because of just like the other team made some plays and you didn't. Hey, it happens. But I think like what's important for the Blazers is just kind of like get out of the tripping over your own feet stages of things. Don't play 2 36-minute games like they did without Denny against Toronto and Boston, and don't just play like just such a sloppy version of basketball in early in the game over the first 3 quarters that you kind of like let a team hang around. So the Knicks are good enough that if you let a team hang around, they might just beat you straight up, and there won't be much competition in the fourth quarter. But I think this is a game just to kind of like a steadying game, an opportunity to steady, because the Knicks are pretty good. The Cavs are decent enough who they play on Sunday. Like, the way that the Blazers have an opportunity to climb in the standings is not just making sure they take care of business against every bad team in the league, but it's getting some quality wins in there. And even like before this little skid, they were stacking up a handful of quality wins in there as well. So, exciting one on Friday. So I will, I'm looking forward to that, and we'll talk about that one and the Cavs game on Sunday in the next time you hear my voice. But we still got to wrap up the show, and we still got to talk about Duop Reath. So let's do that to close the show. Bummer news on Duop. Let's appreciate the Duop Reath story and talk about how it impacts the Blazers in the immediate, both for Duop and for others on the roster. Join me in that third segment, won't you? First, though, let's talk FanDuel. It's last call for football. One Sunday. One last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite in the game, the Seahawks, or you're riding with the underdogs, that's your New England Patriots quarterback by Tar Heel legend Drake May, or you're building one last same-game parlay with all the elaborate props you could possibly imagine. This is the game everyone's been waiting for, where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and to watch Super Bowl 60. So right now, if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after Super Bowl 60, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sports book partner of Super Bowl 60. FanDuel, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. The Blazers announced on Thursday that imaging of Duop Reath's right foot revealed a stress fracture, and then he had to undergo surgery on Thursday morning in New York City. He's done for the season. Dang. And because of the reality of Duop Reath's place on the roster and the Blazers' situation with their emerging two-way players, Caleb Love and Sidi Sissoko, Reath might be done for his Blazers career. There's a chance that last Sunday against the Sacramento Kings was the last time we'll see Duop Reath suit up in a Trailblazers jersey. I mean, he dressed in the following game, but he did not play. Last time out on the court in a Trailblazers jersey. That's a bummer. I like Duop Reath. I will always root for him. I like him as a human. I think he's been very engaging and kind in all my interactions with him. And I love his story. His is one that very few could possibly comprehend. As a child, he fled civil war in South Sudan and lived briefly in a refugee camp in Kenya until eventually a family member was able to move to Australia and then sponsor Reath and the rest of his family's immigration there. And he grew up in Western Australia in Perth, in the most isolated global capital on Earth. Deep in Western Australia, is far away. Look at a map. Most of the big cities are on the other side of the country. And Perth is way out there. And Reath, as a refugee and immigrant trying to find a way to get to chase his dreams, found basketball. It helped that he's 6'9" and athletic, but he ended up moving from there to Lee Community College in Texas. From civil war in Sudan to a refugee camp to Western Australia to Lee Community College. The journey was just beginning. He ended up transferring from there to LSU, where he was teammates with former Blazer great Skylar Mays, playing for Will Wade's LSU teams. And then after going undrafted out of LSU, he just chased his dream all over the stinking map, playing basketball professionally in Lebanon, in Serbia, in China, in Australia. He played thrice in the Las Vegas Summer League before joining the Portland Trailblazers in the summer of 2023. It was his fourth trip to Vegas in 2023. And he impressed and earned a two-way deal coming out of camp. And then he was forced into a major role his rookie year as a two-way player. The Blazers had some injuries, and Duop stepped up and was really good as a rookie. Like he was a revelation as a floor spacer and a shooter. He ended up appearing in 68 games and wore out his two-way contract and ended up with an NBA contract at the All-Star break because they needed him, right? They needed him. He signed a life-changing, quite frankly, a 3-year, $6 million deal with the Blazers. He played his way from a fourth two-way stint in Vegas to a $6 million deal with the Trailblazers. Chased it all over the world, all over the map. Next 2 years in Portland, including this one, he has seen his playing time decrease, but he remains he solidified himself as what he has settled into this year with the Trailblazers, which is a third center, a depth piece, and a guy who adds a dimension that's as a shooter that can in certain situations be useful. The dude is not afraid to shoot. One of the first times he ever played in a game, he immediately got shots up. Ended up taking 6 3-pointers. Like hello, he didn't come all this way to not get some looks at the rim. Shooting 42% from 3 this year. He's while he has his limitations as a rim protector and a sort of moving horizontally. He doesn't protect the rim as a sort of vertical defender. Doesn't move well horizontally as a perimeter defender. Like he's got some limitations, but I will always root for him because he's a good dude. Let me offer you a story about Duop Reath as we close up here. He played in Qingdao in China with the team where Young Hansen was from. They were in fact teammates. Hansen was on the junior team and Duop was on the senior team at the time. But Duop he spoke English, but did not speak Mandarin. And so he had a translator, and his translator in China for the Qingdao Eagles was Chris Liu, who is now Hansen's translator here in the United States. And Chris, I asked Chris, like, was Duop's Mandarin pretty good? Like, did he speak Chinese pretty well? I said, oh yeah, he spoke really well. He's really good. He's a really smart guy, really good. And so I asked Duop, I was like, how's your Mandarin? He's, oh, terrible. Never any good. I only lived there for 8 months. I couldn't speak it at all. Couldn't even order food. He wasn't going to lie. He's incredibly honest and incredibly just like, oh yeah, no, I'm like, I speak a bunch of languages, but not that one. And I didn't live there for very long and I wasn't good at it. So I had to rely on Chris, even with Chris kind of offering him a chance to get out of it right there in the locker room. I love the honesty. I love, Duop's got a really endearing smile. He's just a kind presence. And his story is just incredibly easy to root for. And the cold truth of it is that this injury means that he'll probably never play for the Trailblazers ever again. He'll be a free agent this summer when he will celebrate his 30th birthday in June. And the Blazers were going to come up against it. The way that Duop Reath needed after he used up all his two-way eligibility and needed his contract converted to a two-way deal because he played a bunch his rookie season. Same deal for Caleb Love and same deal for Sidy Cissoko, who are Sidy's going to come up first and then Love after that. But the Blazers were going to have to make a decision to waive someone, and that someone was probably going to be Reath or Rayan Rupert, just based on how it works now. There's a chance that they could make a trade and not have to waive someone, but they would have to make an uneven trade and create 1 or 2 roster spots. 2 roster spots seems pretty unlikely for the trades that were out there, but anything's possible. So what the real cold truth of this is that Reath's journey probably ends here with the Trailblazers, and he probably gets waived to make room for signing. Just for order of operations, it'll probably be Sissoko first, and then Love after, because Love's going to come up after the All-Star break, and City's going to come up right before it, in terms of eligibility left. So, to make room for City Sissoko, although I guess the trade deadline is before that, so we shall see what happens. But there was a chance, just regardless, that this was the end of his Blazers career, because he's entering free agency this summer and he's 30 years old. But if this is it for Duop with the Trailblazers, which I believe it is, if this is it for Duop in the NBA because of his, while he has some skills, he's not the type of center that is like highly coveted by NBA teams. Not a rim protector, doesn't really play like good switchy defense, but he can shoot it, so there's a chance he sticks. If this is it for Duop, I will always appreciate the experience to cover him for these 3 seasons, and I will always appreciate his story and his rise from someone who was as far away from being an NBA player as you could really be at one point in his life, right? As someone who was hoping to survive, to someone living out their dreams with the Trailblazers. Someone I will always root for, no matter where he ends up. That is going to do it for today's program. Tell your friends about the show. Next time I talk to you, they'll play the Knicks. They'll play, it's a 6 p.m. start against the Cavaliers on Sunday, so probably pretty late in your feeds on Sunday nights. I'll talk about both of those games, is what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Go sign up for the Everydayer Club. Tell your friends about the podcast. I appreciate you listening. I will talk to you soon.